Taneytown Comprehensive Maintenance Workshop. Please come to order. I almost forgot where I was. Would you please stand for the pledge for the flag? And then we'll have a moment of silence for deceased Director of Planning.
Flag of the United States of America, which is God, indivisible, for all.
The records reflect the members that are here this evening. Sorry for our loss of Daryl. He's a great asset to the city of Taneytown and the community. It's a great loss. So with that, let's continue. We'll start by reviewing the minutes from last month. Go ahead and start. Go ahead.
Looking for comments on minutes or anything?
Well, I thought we'd go through each item before,
Okay.
and then at the end, we'll make a motion to accept them. Because
Okay.
I'm sure we have comments, and let's go ahead and start with Craig. Want to go ahead and start off with the minutes?
Okay.
Go down one by one. Any comments? Want to start, Craig, with the, like, division items and go right on down?
Okay, you're talking about with the agenda or with?
The agenda.
Oh, the
Well,
agenda.
no, they're the minutes.
Oh,
The minutes from
okay.
last month.
Okay, okay.
All right. I appreciate walking through the minutes because since I missed last month's meeting.
Yeah, so we'll go.
Okay. Emily, do you mind doing that? Because I don't have those in front of me. So if you don't mind doing that.
Yep.
Okay.
Sure, yep, I have them pulled up. Okay, so, right, let's start with the minutes. So, discussion regarding where the boundaries of downtown would be as they apply to the vision and goals. Is the zoning district boundary, is it the zoning district boundary or a more informal boundary? Coordinate with the Main Street program for definition.
There are, I think, 3 separate downtown definitions. There is one for Main Street, there is one for the downtown business zoning, and then there's a separate one in the sustainable communities. So that's where I found the boundary for the Main Street is actually marked in on the sustainable community map, and that's even a different limit.
Just to pick up on that for a second, I was concerned when you mentioned Main Street, when we're looking at the vision as the whole corporation of Taneytown. Just not Main Street.
Right. It depends on the context, really. So there is a Main Street program administered by the state through the Department of Housing and Community Development that has a specific geographic area that is defined on, and I don't want to try to describe it and risk being wrong, but it's, it's the area that the city agreed with the state that this was going to be our Main Street program area. That is a smaller area than the downtown business district for the most part, although it does extend out West Baltimore Street farther than the downtown district, which is a little bit odd. But that is a geographical area that you can, and we can provide a map going forward if need be, but it's
So we don't necessarily need to match with the Main Street Committee, I don't think.
I don't think so
Because
either.
if we didn't have that committee, we would still do this. So my thoughts would be that it just, the downtown business district is what when you call downtown, that's what you mean.
But why are we concerned about downtown, not the whole city?
Well, just because it's a different zoning, the downtown historical business district is a different zoning than like general business. So it's actually by ordinance, a different zone.
So you're picking that up because of the first sentence says the boundaries of downtown.
Yep.
Why you're picking
Yeah,
that
but
up?
the vision was a full paragraph.
Right.
And the paragraph, within that paragraph, it mentioned downtown, but we didn't really know what downtown
Right.
was.
And there were questions about what do we mean by downtown?
Yeah.
So I think
Exactly.
that's what the minutes were just capturing.
So I think if we agree on what downtown is, we'd have to go back then again and reread that paragraph to make sure we all agree, I think.
Yes, and our intent was tonight was to have that mapping, but we weren't able to coordinate that. So next month, we will have that map, at least to start the point of discussion. But
I'm making it to send that to you, Craig. I know where to find that, but because it's not obvious where to look for that.
okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
So, Jim, did you have a thought on what you thought downtown should be, or?
No, I was just concerned about downtown.
Right.
If it was our business district or from
Right.
downtown, what is downtown? If we define downtown, I think that would clear things.
Well, yeah, so in my opinion, we have a downtown business district, and that's downtown. That's it.
Yeah, and it's important, right? That's why we're doing the plan, right? Because right, you have all these different elements. You have this Main Street program. You have what the current zoning is for downtown. So one of the elements of the plan is going to be a future land use map. So maybe none of those boundaries really reflect what the town currently feels that area should embody. So maybe those boundaries will be different in the comp plan, and maybe that then we'll work through zoning changes or Main Street program changes, what have you. But it's just a matter of having it reflect what we as a group agree is reflective of downtown.
It'd be nice if we could
Yep.
get all that coordinated so that they all,
Right.
I'm not sure we can get it all to match up exactly, because I'm not sure DACD would appreciate that, but
Right.
we can try to organize and correlate that as best as possible.
Right.
That's certainly something we can revisit
Yeah, I
going
don't
forward.
think we necessarily have to match with the downtown or the Main Street committee.
No, because I mean, that's a defined boundary for the state. We don't necessarily have to match that, but
But what was the other
looking for correlation.
sustainable community? Is that the Main Street?
Yeah, the Sustainable Communities map is in the zoning maps. It's in the documents portion of the website, because that's where I found it, and the Main Street district limits are marked on that map. And that was I was looking for those Main Street limits, and that was the only place I found them. So I don't know if we have it listed anywhere else, but that was the first place that I gave it.
Yeah, I don't think we've had any maps developed that, beyond that highlight the Main Street district. We rely on the one through the Department of Housing and Community Development mapper on their site to pull that. So we haven't paid anybody to map it out
I
and
wouldn't
give us a
spend any
separate
time
map.
with that
Yeah,
just yet, because that's subject to change depending on the reformulation of Main Street, so.
Okay.
right.
Okay.
So are we're going to just table that for now? or-
Table that and see what would come back next month after we look at the maps, right?
Right. Yes.
Chris is gonna get the map.
Chris is going to take care of.
I will email everyone the map.
I
the
think
location of that.
yeah, when we talk about it again, we should probably have the map and the paragraph, so we can
Yes.
read the paragraph. I don't remember
Right,
how.
because the
what
question just was,
context
we're gonna, in the vision, we're gonna have this vibrant downtown that's gonna be a focal point, and then the question was, well, what exactly is downtown?
Right.
Right.
So,
And to
I mean,
me,
I think
it's
the minutes
downtown
captured
business
that,
I think downtown's the downtown business
Right,
district.
right.
Otherwise, we wouldn't have called it that.
right? So the minutes are right, we just never answered the question yet, that's all.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
Okay. All right, so then the second item on the minutes were some changes to the goals and objectives. Do you want me to kind of just stop with each one to see if there's any comments or questions?
I think so, because I have question marks all the way down.
Okay.
So we take one at a time, maybe.
Okay, so the first one is the land use goal. And we just had adding a phrase into the goal to make it a little bit clearer.
I have no questions.
Yep, I have no questions on that. I think it should be defined,
Yep.
please.
Okay. Next is transportation, finding an alternative name for the greenway that doesn't use the term greenway or bypass.
There, my question is, and my concern is, we keep bringing up the word greenway or bypass. On different sections as we go through our minutes here from last month. I think we'll determine, are we gonna call it a greenway? Are we gonna call it a bypass and stick to one terminology?
Greenway term came from the development, that was
Right, but
proposed development.
remember they said about if we, statewide, if we use the term greenway, that creates issues compared to a bypass.
I don't
Remember
understand.
that from the regular commission meeting? Who brought that up? Was that Jay or someone?
I don't like Greenway and I don't like bypass. I like Antrim Boulevard Extension.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think let's stick with that. I think that's a
So everywhere,
little rebranding, it wouldn't hurt us in
so
that.
No,
if we
sure.
go through this, every place that we have the word greenway, change it.
I mean, if you guys like that name, I mean,
Yeah.
that's,
That's fine with me.
Started out.
Either
with-
Antrim
we have
Boulevard or Antrim Boulevard
there.
Extension.
Right.
Let's continue.
and
started out with it.
after it's connected, it's just gonna be Antrim Boulevard. But
Right.
until we extend it, it's Antrim Boulevard Extension.
Yeah, and I've seen that used a couple other places as well. So I think that that's a name that's already floating out there. So some people will have some recognition with that project still. Okay.
Jim, you have any comments about that?
No, that's the term I have been using more often than not is, completion of Antrim Boulevard or,
like that.
extension of Antrim Boulevard.
Let's rebrand away from all the other.
Perfect. Okay, so moving on to the next one was environmental sustainability and natural resources. Initially removing agricultural land from one of the bullets to change how it reads, and then adding a bullet point reading something to the effect of supporting agricultural preservation efforts within the Taneytown region.
We're good.
Good, okay. Next is housing and community design, defining affordable as it relates to Taneytown and the plan, which I think we had discussed was maybe just using the Maryland definition of affordable.
Joe? I can't remember what it was. but-
I think that's like a,
Does the county have a particular definition of what they're calling affordable housing in the housing plan?
and is that a percentage of the average income or something like that?
So affordable is based on a household income and not the, and so the average median income in this region is about 121,000, I think. So then it's set, affordable would be considered for households that make about, I think it's under 60% of that 121,000. And then to be affordable to that household, because that would be low income, I'm sorry, that's low income, and to be affordable to that low income household would be 30% of that.
Of that income.
A lot of math involved, but it is 30, to be affordable would just be to not exceed 30% of the household income, whatever the household income is. So it's affordable to low income, and then there's workforce housing, which is, I want to say it's 60 to 105% of the area median income, or that 121,000. So it's just different definitions like that, and that's what we use too in the county.
So is that for a single-family home, an apartment, or
It
all
would
the
be
same?
so in an apartment, there could be, let's say, even multiple families living in it. So that would be one household still. And so it would still be based on the household's income. At the state level, how it's just officially, because it is so ambiguous to a lot of, how we use it.
Thanks. Good?
Yeah, I agree. We should just stick with the Maryland, whatever Maryland says, yeah.
And we'll add that definition into the plan, so it's very clear what we're talking about, so there's no ambiguity with that. Okay, and then the next section is implementation and fiscal responsibility. I was changing the first point to read as align the city's capital improvement plan with comprehensive plan goals.
think we just had that backwards the
Right,
first time,
that was
right?
just flipped from what,
Right.
yeah, yes.
Okay. Next, we had the vision for Taneytown Small Town Charm. So we were going to define context-sensitive design, change the first bullet point to read, support the preservation of open space and agricultural land, maintain the surrounding rural landscape, farms, and scenic views by supporting conservation efforts and zoning controls. And then we were changing the first bullet point under supporting a vibrant and walkable downtown to read, ensure downtown becomes a hub for dining, shopping, entertainment, and civic activity.
One of the things just to, that came out of the Main Street conference I was at last week, is that, what defines a walkable downtown means not just that the sidewalks are wide enough to walk on and people can walk comfortably, that there's something to walk to, and something to see, not just walkable but explorable, that there's a reason to walk, not just the fact that you can walk. So when in the parlance of the Main Street planners, walkable is more than just being able to walk down the street.
Future, looking at as far as shopping and entertainment for downtown being switched over to strictly residential.
God, I hope not.
Landlords now deciding to change, since they can't get business or something to fill in the first floor to convert.
So this is, this is where the struggle that we have had over the last, 10 years plus, more since I've been here, but it's gotten worse. It's like we talked about with the Sewell property and the idea that you're going to maintain at some kind of right-of-way for Worthington Boulevard. If you don't do something to save it now, you will never, ever have it. We don't do something to save Main Street and a business community on our Main Street now, we will never, ever have it.
I agree.
I agree
I'm
with
just
that.
looking at the trend.
Well, but, right, so how the question of what are the best ways to fight that trend, and that's Main Street's bailiwick. That's not necessarily a planning commission or a comprehensive plan thing. That's where Main Street comes in. That's what their focus is to create that. And we have no time to lose. So
that's still our vision.
I'll leave that at that, but yes, I agree, it's headed in the direction that you're saying, and I don't think that that's a good thing.
Bill, you have a comment?
Just, it always comes back to me when we're talking about downtown, that, the trip that we took out to Brunswick. At one time, I don't know what it was before, we knew how they did it. They took a chance, they invested in that downtown, and look what they did with it. As Chris said, we keep kicking that can, but it just seems we have to do something, but it's just so tough. There's not funding, there's no money out there. Worse. But if we don't start pushing a little bit more, and what they took chances, they invested the town itself.
Yeah.
They bought buildings or whatever. Then, I think they, and correct me if I'm wrong, they bought it not to make a profit, just to get
Right.
something going down
Just to
there.
get it out of the hands of a landowner who didn't,
Yeah. And it worked.
and yeah,
As we saw
they were able to
firsthand.
redevelop it, and they've got, 5 new businesses now in that building, that they were able to get a grant to buy in the first place and get a developer to buy it and fix it up. But that takes effort, it takes time, and it takes energy, that no one has put to that in the 7 years, 8 years that I've been here. So that's what has to change. Now, you're entirely correct. I mean, you're not wrong.
Tough time with it, you know. I know something could be done, but, I don't know. It takes money.
It takes money, it takes talent, it takes leadership, it takes desire.
And it takes
we haven't
vision.
had,
And it takes vision,
and vision.
which is
and
what
that's
this
what
plan is
Yes,
about.
right.
Whatever
And
happens downtown is gonna have to be something as a destination point
Yes.
to draw people to downtown.
And that's what we've been missing. We've been missing that destination point, you know, and we have a couple of continuously empty spaces that could be those destination points to draw people, and we just can't seem to make things happen in that. And so, you know, I'm not sure, you know, that would be the task facing, the monumental task facing a new economic development director when we get one is, you know, how to fix this.
Something that people need.
That's what put us behind that, so far behind, you know.
Yeah, right, because we haven't
Going
focused
down
on
that
that
road
for
with what happened.
10 years.
Yeah, it's just, we haven't had a person with that vision as that person that we met with out there. Drove it, you know.
Just again, to reiterate, you know, the comp plan sets the vision, you know, what does the community, what does the group here, you know, what is our goal? What do we want to achieve? Not necessarily, you know, guaranteeing we're going to get there or laying out all the baby steps along the way. It's just, this is what, you know, the community envisions or desires, you know, to see.
And that was obvious from the survey, right? I mean, so many people said that from the survey, that that's what they want. So then the question becomes, how do we create that?
No, that's all very true, right? And Jim, you're absolutely right. You know, the plan, and there is this, you know, the interest is still very strong in the community to have a vibrant or a reason to come downtown. And it's just a matter of, you know, hopefully the Main Street program will help advance that. And it's, you need that core group of people, right? You need the population to come to the area, and so it's just encouraging the reason, you know, just creating those reasons to come to downtown.
I wonder how many people that live downtown actually responded to the survey saying that they wanted to revitalize it. 'Cause I would like I like the statement that's there, but I don't live there and I don't own anything there.
Right.
Yeah, your point is taken, but, you know, it's still done properly, the commercial property should be worth more than just apartments. You know, so the task is, how do we make it worth more? You know, Keith Reed told me a long time ago, he'd convert storefronts, you know, some of these apartments back to storefront if he thought it paid him to do it. But at the time, and right now, it doesn't pay him to do it, so why should he? And I can't argue that point. Yeah, you know, that's where the task is before us.
But nevertheless,
All right.
I'm good with the vision that's written.
But getting back to what we're
Emily,
talking
let's-
about.
Go ahead.
Okay. All right, so we discussed doing the key person interviews virtually to reduce the strain of travel and the scheduling for Craig and I. Any questions on that?
So where are we at with that?
I thought there was consensus last week to go to move forward with the virtual to make it,
Yes,
you know,
but have we started?
yeah.
Now, we did not start, but we will do that the next month before the next meeting. We'll get
Because
those.
I would sure like to hear some input from those key people as each month as we go on. I'm sure there's some input that we could be talking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd appreciate if we could do something for next month.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. And then the following was some comments from the public. Did we want to go through those as well?
I'm good. Good,
Questions there?
we're good.
I mean, Most of this is stuff that's straight out of your housing study, correct? About the varieties of housing, not only the variety of types of housing, but of the levels of affordability and.
Paul's comment, we pretty much covered that too.
Yeah, so when I read Paul's comments there, I guess, I don't remember who all we were going to get personal interviews from. And I thought we could review that list again. And it seemed like his concern, he wanted to make sure that we covered everybody that he thought we should cover. So I think maybe we should get the list, and if there's somebody else that we want to get an interview, maybe we'll just mail it to them. I can't remember who all was on
I
it.
think we spent a lot of time on that list over a 2 or 3 month period, and I
Yeah.
thought we finally settled on the
Yeah,
list.
I
So
think
if
we're fairly
we-
settled, but it'd just be nice to be reminded, if you happen to
mean-
have a copy of that list, it'd be great.
We
I can
absolutely did.
dig it out and share it, but I think if we revisit everything that we've talked about, the previous month, we're gonna make
I think
very
there were
little
17,
progress.
at least 17 key
Yeah.
people, and I think that's sufficient.
I think that's plenty, yeah, I agree. But like
Yeah,
you say,
it was a diversified list,
Yes.
if I recall. I just don't
Yes.
remember who all was on it.
I guess that's in our minutes somewhere, huh?
Somewhere in,
I have the list, if you'd like me to read through it really quickly.
If you want to,
Yeah, if you don't mind.
Actually, I'd like to get a copy of
good.
it so I can look at it, but yeah, you can read it.
yes.
Sure, I'll read it and then I'll make sure to send it out as well. So we have the Chamber of Commerce, Caring and Sharing, FlowServe, Evapco, Curaleaf, the Fire Department, the Police Department, the Department of Public Works, the Economic Development Committee, the Heritage and Museum Association, the I think this is the Senior Center. So yeah, Senior Community Center, the Meads Crossing HOA, the Carroll Vista HOA, the Creekside HOA, and the Meadowbrook HOA. So I think that the only person that's not on here that Paul mentioned was someone from Antrim.
and I would, if we could add that, if you get the general manager from Antrim on that list, I think that's, they're, not only are they a major driver of economic activity, they're also one of the main employers in town.
I bet they already sent an interview in.
Okay.
I bet.
Thing was our next meeting. I think everything was covered, so can I get a consensus accepting the minutes of March the 25th, 2025?
I'm good.
Yep,
Okay, we good? We're good.
good.
Thank you. All right, new for tonight.
Okay, new for tonight, we provided the kind of the initial stages of some of the planning elements for the plan. And as I mentioned, our plan was to have the mapping done with this, but we weren't able to do that for this month. So this might not make, it'll be much more clear once we have the maps to go with this information to kind of graphically represent what all the words say. So, but we'll go through these elements rather quickly tonight. I don't know if you had a chance to read through them, but what we've done is take those goals that we had discussed last month, and then put some action items with them, and then go into some text to explain how to implement the plan, or what some of the challenges are to implementation that we would need to kind of focus on to achieve the vision that we've talked about. So does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm good. I like the way it was laid out, where you have a little paragraph, you have the
Yes.
goals, and then definition of the goals. I thought that was really good, and then a more detailed description in the back. So, but I do have some detailed questions.
Okay. Well, why don't we jump into any questions? Let's start with the land use and smart growth, and what questions there might be. The important thing about that is the recognition of, it's great to have that open space and ag land for everyone to look at and enjoy, but it also has some drawbacks with regard to restricting growth of the town.
Okay, I'm ready. Go ahead.
Yeah, so on the first page there, where we have the little inset on what is smart growth, a couple questions that I had when I read through this was like, it says mixed land uses. So I believe that probably means different things to different people. And so I kind of want to know what that means to all of us. So what it means to me is like, you can have a business and a residential above it and a business below. So I'm okay if we're talking about all of Taneytown and we want that in the downtown area. I'm not necessarily in favor of that in the community village kind of thing where you would have that little store out in a development somewhere. Mainly because I don't think it'd be a small store, mom and pop shop. I don't think it'd be sustainable out there. So I mean, these are the thoughts I had when I read that, so I didn't know what everybody else was thinking.
I
So,
was looking at the kind of the greenways and all that other stuff part of it, not, as far as little parks and stuff like that within a community.
yeah, right. So you're looking at it like the entire town,
Town,
which
right.
makes sense to me. But I didn't want anybody to think that
see what you're saying too,
that
yeah.
means, oh, well, that's what we want for a development also, because I don't agree with that.
But then if we have a residential area and then have a light commercial entrance of it or somewhere,
Right.
I think I'm okay with that.
like we're gonna have out at Garnett.
Yeah, Garnet Ridge, right,
Garnet
there's, where
Ridge.
there's the 5-acre out parcel that's in the
Front,
front is own general business, I believe. And then the same thing actually is at the end, on the 194 entrance in Mountain Branch, in that, there's a 5-acre parcel right there right there just to the or west of that entrance. Isn't that a commercial property?
Not sure about the acreage, but yeah, there is a commercial strip along the road frontage. for part of
So that gives that kind of that mix of use, and so I think we've done a fair amount of that, but I think the thing that we could look into is, especially in the infill and the closer to the downtown, are mixed-use zoning, some kind of mixed-use zoning ordinance that would, allow for just that kind of thing, with ground level retail and residential above.
Yeah, and I think the reason I'm in favor of that downtown is because of the other traffic that goes by, as opposed to something like where the swimming pool is in Meads Crossing, if that was a little grocery store or something, I mean, how many people are gonna drive in there to get groceries?
But
People
not
are
only
gonna
that,
walk
but
in.
the residents wouldn't want that kind of commercial traffic
Right.
running through their neighborhood to get to it.
So I think, in my mind, as long as mixed land use applies to the entire town, then I'm good with that.
That's what I was looking
So,
at.
if that's what everybody thinks.
Yeah, so it can be on a macro and a micro level with that. So like, for example, we just talked about downtown and wanting to create, and strengthen downtown, right? So you don't necessarily want to create all, opportunities for competition for that necessarily,
Yes.
right? So you want to make sure that you're not kind of, undercutting what your vision is. But on the other hand, right, you want to make sure that, within the downtown, right, that you do have, residential combined with commercial uses.
Okay.
And then on the macro scale, just right, providing for all uses, right, all different types of land uses. So, and not just, and all different types of residential uses as well. So mixed use can be a mix of residential types of uses. So it can mean a bunch of different things.
Okay.
So in that first line, can we just revise that to say an appropriate mix of land uses?
Sure. So that's right out of the state's kind of principles. That's the statement from there. I think what we can do is, take that and then further define it in the written portion of the document in terms of what it means to us, what it means to Taneytown.
And so my second question is very similar. So when it says compact building design, what's that mean to you guys? Small rooms?
I was thinking when I looked at it, I was just thinking of Main Street, what we have now.
Yeah, so,
Many large buildings downtown across the street, they're all
Well, you can have compact spaces in
That's what I'm
large
looking at,
buildings
compact.
also. You know, when I think of compact space use, I think of that, go back to Brunswick, right, and that apartment building,
Yeah.
which was, exactly that, it was clean, it was tidy, it was compact, it had the parking underneath of it, it had, I think there was some, commercial right there at the end on the one end. That's exactly what I would envision in that statement.
Right, again, I'm good with compact building design in the downtown area, but I don't want compact building design in our new developments. So that's kind of, again, that's why I'm reading that, so,
Okay.
I mean, so I think if.
Would you
I
want to
think if-
revise that then?
Well, I think maybe just, if
Where
we agree
appropriate?
that all these 10 items apply to the town and not any, I think that would, I mean, that's kind of, when I read it, if it applies to the entire town, then it makes perfect sense to me.
If these are the states, if this is basically cut and paste from the state planning department, maybe we can just, reference that, the 10 principles of smart growth per the state of Maryland are. And then, as Craig said, we can sort of elaborate on what Taneytown's interpretation is, through the chapter then.
I like that. I
But like
agree.
acknowledge that these are the states,
Yeah, they're the
here's what the
state's
state
words.
says.
Yeah.
Here's how we're gonna make that work for Taneytown.
I like that.
Yeah, and if you look to the goals, that it kind of does that, right? It's how whether it's mixed land use, and we talk about maintaining a balanced mix of residential, commercial, and industrial development. So we're taking that concept and then putting it into a goal, and then telling how we're going to achieve that goal. So, um, yeah, because you're right. I mean, those 10 principles mean different things to every community, different communities. It doesn't mean the same thing to everybody. And so we need to, number one, say, okay, yes, smart growth is a good idea, something that makes sense, both financially, economically, environmentally, and then how does that work for us?
Yep, I'm good.
Good.
Thank you.
Any other particular questions on the land use and smart growth section?
Here's, we're good.
The goals and everything, I'm good with that
I'm
page.
good too, yeah.
Yep,
And
good.
that page 24 looks like. So in the top paragraph on the right-hand column there, so we're saying that to support the downtown, the city's going to explore a number of things there. And I guess I'm not, I guess at a top level, I'm fine with the town supporting and helping people, but I don't want this to imply that we're going to do anything for them, because then it's hard to, if I do it for Bill, then I have to do it for somebody else, right? So,
I kind of agreed with that too, because I didn't like the idea of reducing the permit fees and tax incentives
yeah,
for just,
yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about that. All right, I agree, that's,
I don't know if I want to put that in our vision for next 10 years.
but if we're helping them get a grant, oh yeah, hey, here's a grant out here, we found it, oh yeah, we'll support you, we'll help you write it, we'll help you do whatever, but I'm not sure about, I guess I don't know enough what the fee reductions would be or the tax breaks.
Sure, so maybe just kind of rewording, taking out the, like the specific strategies and kind of rewording it as providing technical support in obtaining grants or permits or things like that.
That would,
I like
Yeah.
that.
Jim,
Well, I think the existing language isn't obligatory. It says the city can explore, these strategies. So I don't think it's an obligation of the city, but, if the commission's not comfortable enumerating things like that,
Well, I
we
mean-
could, soften it and make it a little bit more general, I think, as Emily suggested.
I've read it run, I might feel different if I read it next week, I'm not sure, but.
Well, and I will say that, the idea, I mean, not so much permit fees, but creating tax incentives is one of those things that it could help the spur development and without creating a lot of inequities in in taxes across the city. Because you don't want it to be, you don't want it to be a giveaway, but there has to be something there that helps, and what can we afford to give? What can we give without messing up our structure? You know, again, those are all just tools, and just we're not a big. If we were a bigger town, then tax incentives may mean something, but I don't know that necessarily tax incentives mean a whole lot in 2020.
To Jim's point, it does, it does say the city can explore, it doesn't say
Yes.
they will.
Right.
So,
Right.
so
Right.
maybe it's fine the way
It's
it
just
is.
leaving options open.
Yeah. That was my initial thoughts anyway. We don't have to decide tonight.
To the paragraph, first paragraph on the left, agriculture land preservation easement. Do we have any in town now, agriculture easement?
I don't think there's any easements in town, but the town is surrounded by those currently. And that's going to limit the expansion of any future annexations or that will limit growth to a degree.
With those agriculture easements outside of town, can we get any recharge?
Yes, yeah, they have, and I think Jim can speak to that as well, but those do have an impact on your groundwater recharge areas as well, yes.
The county actually just dedicated about 90,000 gallons of recharge acreage, or the equivalent of that, to us. Mayor and council just approved that agreement at this month's council meeting. And we are, at this point, it's kind of exploratory in nature, but, I've spoken with the Director of Planning and Land Management and of the Ag Preservation folks at the county, and, conceptually, we've agreed to partner on some preservation easements within the city's aquifer area, so that the city can, partner with the county on those preservation easements in exchange for that recharge automatically coming to the city. So we would, rather than compete with ag preservation, we would partner with them and make a contribution towards that in exchange for getting the recharge. So, rather than have to be competitive with the per acre cost, it may not be the end all, but it's a tool that we can use. And we're already working with the county on that.
Page?
So that's a great example of some innovative ideas.
Greg called me innovative. Wow. I should just go home now.
You're
It's
ahead.
like hitting a long drive off the first tee, right? I just bag it and go home.
I'm good with the pictures, I think
Yeah, I think
they illustrate
yes.
very good.
Do we have any pictures that are actually of Taneytown that would be demonstrative of this? It'd be nicer, it'd be better if we had examples of something within town instead of, I'm not sure where these.
We could make one.
Yeah. So we have a ton of pictures of town throughout the plan, but these are trying to illustrate some examples of what might be nice to see from a design standpoint.
I don't think we could find the bottom picture in Taneytown.
No, we don't have trees that big
We don't have
These
that
are-
much space between the buildings and the street
in
either.
the street, yeah.
Yeah.
These are all Maryland photos. I tried to find things that were a little bit more comparable to the size of Taneytown and the feel of it. If anyone has photos or wants to take photos, I will gladly use them. I just don't really want to use like street view. I could use it, but the quality isn't as good. I'm not going to get the right angles and things like that to show what we want to show.
I think that bottom photo is a good example of almost like a form-based approach where you have the buffer between the parking lane and the pedestrian, thoroughfare area, but then you have seating areas, so you've got kind of a defined public realm that's, open between the street and the businesses or the storefronts there. So that's a good
We had such
example of,
space,
yeah.
yes.
You noticed our streets are empty also.
Yeah.
Hey, people, you gotta look harder.
Any other thoughts or comments on the land use before we move on to transportation?
Like, we're good.
Good.
Great. So, any comments before we get into it on the transportation? Anything you want to highlight or?
Nothing on 26.
Okay.
26 is transportation. When did York Street, Hanover Street change to York Street?
Oh, you don't remember that?
Trying to say something.
Do recognize the buildings. That is good.
Yeah.
That is good.
That's a pretty nice streetscape back then, so that's,
Gradually coming back to Horse and Buggy Hill.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's better than hearing the Jake Bricks.
yeah. Clip clop is a whole lot better than.
I saw that on the way
Right.
home. Clip clop, clip clop.
So you're on page 27.
Yeah. Yeah, so on 27, I think I talked myself out of it, but on goal number 4, when we said the Antrim Boulevard is a vital element, I thought that was a little strong. I mean, if we never get that boulevard extension, we could still do a nice downtown. So, but I think I talked myself, I was thinking about words like enables or reinforces or stuff like that, but I think maybe I'm okay with vital.
yeah. And
I'd
it's
like to keep
important-
it strong.
Yeah, it's important to remember, how this plan's going to be used too, right? This will be used to, pursue funding opportunities and, convince lawmakers how important this particular thing is. So the stronger the language on things that are most important to you, the better off that you'll be.
Understand.
To support that, yeah. And obviously, we'll change that now to the Antrim Boulevard extension anytime where you see the Taneytown Greenway.
But at this particular bulletin, the Greenway really fits in with what you're trying to say with pedestrians and bicycle safety.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you give a little and take a
Yeah.
little.
Although the idea really is that you build the Antrim Boulevard extension to provide the bicycle safety
Right.
downtown,
Right.
where it isn't today, so.
Yeah, and really, I think the Boulevard extension bypass Greenway is really critical to how downtown is going to be in the future because, again, going back to the surveys and the input that we've heard here, the traffic moving through town really is a negative element of being downtown. So I think, anything to be done to move some of that traffic and allow, if people just feel safer, I think that's going to have a huge benefit.
Yes, I'm tracking having a strong language. I'm okay with that. But there's still going to be a lot of traffic going through town. So if you get, you're gonna get people that are going from Westminster to Frederick, and then maybe, I mean, if I'm going to Emmitsburg, I'm still coming straight through town, I'm not going that way.
In a
So-
car, yes, the idea is to get the trucks out,
The trucks would be good
Commercial truck.
get the commercial
So-
traffic out.
for the industrial area there, that would help. Yep, okay.
Page 28.
Yeah. So on the 28, I'm sure in the first paragraph, you noted page 79 of this comprehensive plan. I'm sure you'll update that one day,
Yeah.
whatever that page number is going to be. And I guess just a question for me on the right-hand column, that first full paragraph there, we talk about doing traffic studies. Does anybody really think traffic studies are valuable? I mean, I just,
Anytime you use figures, they can say what you want them to say.
well, and,
That concerns me. Over a couple years ago, we had the one on the square.
well, yeah, so if we do a traffic study on the square, they're gonna tell you it's congested between these hours. So, I mean.
We know that.
Do we need to
We know
pay?
that.
Yeah, do we need to pay that? That's just, when I read,
But then again, when we got a new development coming in town, it's good to get a traffic study
and that's
Projections, yeah.
projected, that's a
projected
projected study.
for like the Sewell property. What's going to happen to Harney Road and 140? You know, we've had them before, but
It's also important to know who's paying for the study.
Yeah, do we, I mean, we know what's gonna happen.
yeah.
And it was just a comment I had when I read that, so,
I won't share that with any traffic engineers, so. yeah.
Yeah, but it is, the only thing I will say about studies is that it's important to have the data to back up. Yeah, we know that from 3:30 to 6 o'clock, you can't get up Baltimore Street. We all know that. But it's nice to have the data so that when somebody says, well, how many cars is that? Then, and what's the actual level of service during these hours?
Right.
Then you've got hard data to say this is what it is.
Yeah, you need that baseline information to work from, and there are some surprises that do come out of the studies. Because it is entertaining, right? In any kind of public meeting where there's a controversial traffic issue, right? Everybody's traffic expert because they've all experienced. They know exactly what's going on in that location. But the data is helpful, particularly with turning movements and when traffic lights are warranted and things of that nature. So they can be beneficial for sure. And just while we're talking, you've noticed the page numbers. So just from a plan format standpoint, right? All this, the plan elements are now going to be in the front of the plan rather than currently they're in the back of your comp plan. And this is the most important part of the plan. So we're moving it up front rather than having it be towards the back. So if anybody wants the data behind it, they can read the back of the plan, but this stuff will be up front.
29.
yeah, I'm 29. Let's see here. I think if you go down the column there on the left there, about 2 inches, it says wait until, and then it's got 1A, land. Is that just a typo? Or is it LA? The land?
Oh, I see. Yep.
Yeah.
I will double check your typos for sure.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that's just a typo. Yep.
Sorry, I can't remember what my notes are.
Bill, anything? Catches up,
Yeah.
we can move on to the next page.
Well, one of the things, I would just, one of the things, you talked about a traffic calming measure, you know, the biggest problem we have is that we just simply have the width of the streets to employ some of these traffic calming measures. And so I'm wondering, you know,
We don't have that issue downtown. Traffic doesn't move that fast through downtown to have it.
that needs to be calmed.
Our issues is moving traffic through town.
So I'm just saying, you know, if you're going to discuss traffic calming and indicate a picture of traffic calming like this, we really don't have any place in town that I know of that would fit this bill, you know, where you could actually do this kind of traffic calming.
So another thing that we could highlight instead is more of the like paving material, things like cobbles that tend to slow people down, or painting,
Yep.
crosswalks, or just painting patterns on the street that tend to slow people down. So I can swap that out. So it's more focused on that.
Yeah, chicanes, and it's also important to think about how you might implement traffic calming measures into new projects as well, and any new developments.
Yeah, I like that.
Just for everyone's information, we are in the midst of modifying our street and stormwater specifications to include some traffic calming devices like speed tables, so that when new streets are constructed, new residential streets are constructed, as we always, you know, have the debate about, you know, we build a 38-foot wide street that's like a 40-mile-an-hour design speed, and we expect people to drive 20 miles an hour on it. And then we end up putting stop signs at every other intersection to try to slow people down, which really isn't the right way to do it. So since we can't have a police officer on every street 24 hours a day, we are going to start introducing speed calming, traffic calming devices in new construction as part of our specification manual. So if we want the wide street that encourages people to drive fast so you can put the outriggers on the fire truck down, we need to do something so we don't then get calls because everybody's ripping down my street at 40 miles an hour. So we are updating the specification manual so that we'll have, right now we're looking at a speed table specification, you know, and there will be a design speed that, you know, if you go across it at the speed limit, you don't have to slow down. But if you go across it above the speed limit, it's going to give you some problem. You know, certainly we don't want to create a hazardous condition by, you know, making them too extreme, but, you know, enough of an inconvenience that it will adjust the driver behavior. And we're actually looking at retrofitting some existing streets. You know, right now we're rebuilding a segment of Stumptown Road between Amicus and Keenan Street. And towards the base of the hill, there's going to be a speed table incorporated because we've been getting a lot of complaints about people ripping down the hill at high speeds, right where a lot of people cross from the Copperfield community into Robertsville Park. So that's going to be kind of our test case. Now we
And
may
how do they
find,
hold up with snowplows?
so we are incorporating it into the wear course of the top coat of the asphalt, so there's not going to be a seam, you know, for the plow to catch on. So, you know, if they're designed and incorporated with a paving project, they should last longer and not, you know, create problems for public works. We've also ordered some temporary speed tables that we've generally shied away from them because they get anchored into the pavement and then they, you know, create freeze-thaw cycle issues where those anchors go and, you know, damage the pavement. But where we identified a need in coordination with the police department for a permanent speed table, we may implement these temporary ones until we get to, you know, that particular paving project. So, and then when we replace that temporary with a permanent one, you know, we'll move them to the next priority area. So the police department's provided a list of streets that they think would be good candidates for speed tables, and incorporating them into our paving budget, you know, for, and it's going to, you know, be, the retrofits are going to be ongoing for, I'm sure, quite some time. But with new construction, we'll have this in the specification manual so that we won't have to go back to address the speeding complaints and things like that. So, you know, it's always a give and take. You do the narrow streets so that you reduce speeds, and then people complain they can't park on their side, or that, a truck can't get around the corner. You make them wide, and then people drive fast and people complain. So, hopefully this will be, a feature that can
I
avoid
don't
some
really,
of that.
I don't really believe the 1980s study that said about the narrow streets and people drive slower. I think it's a matter of whether it's smooth. If it's a smooth road, they're gonna drive fast. And if you just walk out there, Roberts Mill Road, you can just see cars flying. So I think the speed tables are definitely a way to go.
Yeah, especially once you fix Stumptown Road, and it is smooth, that will.
Well, that'd be a nice
certainly-
racetrack.
yeah. But I like the idea of the speed table there, and the speed tables are wider. They're not like
Right.
like a little speed bump in the parking lot. And so you're not gonna knock that off with a snowplow.
All right, as we
Sorry.
move.
Yep, thanks.
on.
Yeah, so actually my comment it was on page 29 when I was reading it. So Chris mentioned in the past here, and I agree with him, that the bypass, or whatever we're going to call it, the boulevard extension, is likely going to be tied to more development in town. So we didn't really say that anywhere in here. We just kind of talk about it. So I don't know if that's something we should indicate in here or not. So it was just a thought to throw out there, but
Well, we kind of touched on it right at the beginning here on the left where it says annexations or property owners' agreements will need to be secured with the entire length of the roadway.
yeah, well, so you're right. Yeah, so when I read
And A
that,
to B needs to
Yeah.
be completed by the developer.
yeah, so so I understand what you're saying. When I read that, I'm thinking from the end of it over to 194. I didn't think that meant through the development, but I can see where you read that. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and we can modify that to talk about, the road.
I think you got it pretty well.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
kind
I
of,
think you're good. Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's got,
Okay, I'm good.
it's easy enough for me to understand, at least.
Well, I mean, I didn't think that when I read it the first time. So,
Try it tomorrow.
okay, next week.
That's Memorial Park.
Yep.
Had no comments. Okay,
No comments? Well, I mean, I think, in our opinion, this is one of your strongest current assets, really, that you have in the community. It's very strong, one of your stronger points that you have to build upon. Is it- Nothing more on that?
best parks in the county,
Oh, we got the most land.
most
We got the
land
most
designated for parks.
of all municipalities.
I'd say we have the best.
Okay.
I think you could say that.
Comes with a
I would
price.
challenge someone to say that somebody has better parks than we do.
Right, okay.
I think I'd be with that. Page on, Jim.
I'm ready for 32.
32, yeah. So, I had a question on the second paragraph there. We talk about the schools, and I guess I was just wondering, how does the town actually influence what, like, the Carroll County Public Schools do? I mean, so like if we want something with a state, we go and we talk to them and say, hey, we would like to have a bypass put in, right? So do you do the same thing with the schools? I mean, the schools, they do their own studies and they decide what they're going to do, and we really don't have any input, do we?
Come
So-
Before us, yes.
I mean, so they would come to you for any kind of, changes, any, development patterns, what are the new developments, and, when they're doing their demographic projections, looking what their needs are, but beyond that, no.
Unfortunately, the state, they have to be at 110% or something of capacity
Yeah.
before the state will even consider an addition. Yeah, you have to be you have to be substantially over 100% to, before the state will fund an addition or any kind of capital improvement to the schools. Crazy.
Yeah, I mean, nothing's wrong in the paragraph. I think everything's, accurate and good. It's just that it kind of implies to me that the town has some sway over that, and I don't think we do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, the intent there is just to recognize that, it's certainly definitely a community resource and something that all the residents rely on, and it might be something that needs to be, that, might not be experiencing changes in the future.
So I'm good.
Well, they just came before us for approval for an addition.
For the
So-
addition, yeah.
right,
But
so-
we didn't tell them to make that addition.
Right.
We didn't say, put in an
No,
addition.
no, I guess it's up to them to decide if they need it, not
Right.
us.
It was
Yeah,
because
'cause
of the
that-
Current Commission.
That addition though was for the all-day kindergarten,
Yes.
and those additions are, and they're, because they're doing 4 of them right now, they just get ready to start 4 more. Those are driven by the state requirements for the all-day kindergarten, not so much by additional enrollment. But I think maybe what we ought to do is, reference in some way that, future development may be limited by school capacity, what's the,
Well, we already have that, that's in the adequate,
Adequate
adequate
facilities.
facility, thank you.
yeah, we already have that.
That phrase was in my mind, but I couldn't
Yeah.
think of it. So, but I mean, but should we reference that here so that that becomes part of the plan, is to, refer back to adequate public facilities?
I mean, it's that way for,
Good, but that's a way for any project.
Right.
You've got to meet.
Okay.
I just find it's interesting that people come in and they complain about, oh, the schools are crowded and we don't have enough water and stuff like that. But, we're told if we have enough schools, and we're told if we have enough water, so it's just kind of interesting. Anyway,
I mean, some general language that, the city should maintain its adequate public facilities ordinance to ensure that, services remain
I think it would
efficient
be,
for, anticipated
It-
growth, if you would like to see something like that.
I think
but
it would be
is
good to
already in our code.
yeah, I think it would be good to reference that, because,
This would be a good place for it, community,
Well, yeah.
somewhere in this section.
That's your means of implementing it, so yeah, that makes sense.
Maybe just some mention in the first paragraph where it talks about community facilities must strike a careful balance providing adequate services. Maybe we just can add a little blurb about, such as through an adequate public facilities ordinances or something like that.
Yeah.
I'm good with that.
And then we'll update that paragraph on the top right-hand side to incorporate what Jim had talked about earlier.
Thirty-three. Crosswalk for that poor guy in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
Environmental sustainabilities.
Okay.
I'm good with that page. But you want a flower garden somewhere?
Well, I don't know, I was just thinking,
Well-
I mean, now's the time to talk about stuff like that. I mean, I'm not necessarily saying a flower garden, but
And the maintenance, who's gonna be responsible? In the schools, we had problems with them, they won't take care of them.
I don't know, it's just,
But that does go back to the term walkability, right? Because that feeds back into that, that there, that it's pleasant to walk, not just that you can. That's what makes it inviting.
I'd like the flower beds. I mean, I was in Oxford and St. Michael's, and everybody's house looks great. Everybody's got nice flower beds. It's amazing.
the open lot we have down here. If we put that, or does some, okay.
No, Ollie still owns that.
Be nice to have a little flower bed in there and a little bench, maybe a couple trash cans or something like, yeah, just a mini park. That could be some type of incentive.
Yeah, and, you know, and there are grants available for that kind of thing, but we would have to either purchase the property or get an easement. You know, I don't know that he has any current plans to build anything there, but I also know he doesn't plan to sell it because I think he options open, and then there's a garage on the back end of the property, I think, that he still uses. So, but, you know, if we wanted to create a little pocket park there or something, maybe we can get some sort of easement from him and get a small grant to create one.
Give downtown a conversation piece.
Exactly. Something other than a vacant lot.
Right. Even though it does look nice and green. I didn't have anything for that other than what I just mentioned. Yes, on the goals, you know, and I don't know why, but there isn't anywhere through here we mentioned anything about solar panels or anything about sustainable energy.
Well,
anything.
interesting you should say that. I have a comment about that.
Well, I wrote that here.
So,
I mean,
but unfortunately, I don't want that here. But
pardon me?
So I said, yeah, I have a comment about solar panels, but it's not because I want them in here. So on goal number 4, I think it's great that, you know, we're looking for energy efficient equipment, LEDs. I think that's a good idea. So then we talk about combined with support for cleaner renewable energy. So when you say renewable energy, what I think of is solar, wind, or geothermal, right? So how many times, so wind, I'm not in favor of that, because how many times have you seen three windmills in a row and they're all operating? I mean, I can't remember. I mean, they're broken, they don't blow. I mean, the solar, I'm not in favor of a solar field anywhere around us. I don't think it looks very nice. It's definitely an advantage for the landowner, like we saw down in Kent Island. It was a big advantage for that family, but I'd rather see a cornfield than that. And then I'm just not convinced that solar is necessarily the way of the future there. So all my neighbors that have panels, they're putting them on their roof and everything, and I say, oh, hey, I'd like to talk to you in 2 years and see how you're making out. And I haven't had anybody tell me, oh, I've saved 80%. Or, I mean, they don't know. Nobody knows. So I don't really think either one of those are something that we should be in favor of. Geothermal, I mean, that's pretty cool. I think it's pretty expensive to put in, so I'd be supportive of that, but I don't know. Yeah. Unless there's something else that's considered renewable energy other than those 3 things, I'm not sure what it would be.
We don't have any ordinances regarding solar, do we, right now, in our zoning?
You could only put it on the roof.
So, right, our code is pretty silent on solar energy. So we certainly approve, you know, rooftop solar or accessory solar, you know, as an accessory use to a property. Of course, you know, the property owner still needs to go through the whole, you know, small generating facility paperwork that usually the solar company facilitates for them. As far as like larger scale solar, the code is silent on it. Personally, I think that it should be a permitted use within the restricted industrial district because it's a low impact, you know, but then again, it doesn't produce jobs. You know, it doesn't use any water or sewer capacity, but it doesn't, you know, really generate, and I don't know the numbers on this and would like to learn them, but, you know, what if I put a solar array on 20 acres, what does that do to the assessed value of the property? You know, is there a dramatic increase? You know, how does that stack up to putting a building on the property? You know, so are we diminishing the return on that property that has solar as compared to some other type of industrial use? And my assumption is yes. But then again, you know, the city is looking at renewable resources, say for our wastewater treatment plant. You know, we've been exploring, you know, solar opportunities there to reduce our you know, our energy bill. The wastewater plant is a tremendous electricity user. And we don't have acreage upon which we can put solar panels. So, you know, I think from a city standpoint, that is an option that's to be considered, but admittedly, most people don't like the way they look. So certainly if we were to adopt something, we would have to ensure that we have, you know, buffer areas and setbacks and things like that to, you know, mitigate the view of them, because a lot of people just plain don't like them. So.
Well, I mean, the things that we could do, I mean, we only have a few large-scale parking lots. But, you know, carport-style solar is, you know, I've seen that employed effectively in a number of places. And I like that use. I like rooftop use. But don't cover up green space on the ground for solar until you've covered all the rooftops and parking lots first.
Okay, so actually go forward, we can stay with the language that's there.
Yeah, I think we want to encourage, I think maybe we want to encourage, you know, let's be, you know, ecologically friendly and encourage that use, but direct how that encouraged use is going or where it goes.
Glad you thought of solar too. I had it wrote down too.
Yeah, and that actually, you know, reflects to those thoughtful design strategies and that implementation, you know, the more detail of that. So it doesn't mean that solar is appropriate everywhere.
The other,
I was gonna say, I just haven't seen, the only numbers that I ever seen that quote the efficiency of solar, they come from the salesman. I've never seen anything come from the owner.
But the other thing to keep in mind also is that the state of Maryland is currently working on legislation, or may even already enacted legislation, that may override our zoning ability to stop it on agricultural land.
Yeah.
There again, we don't have agricultural land, so
Well, so,
enough to worry about.
you know, so we may want to fight it there, but we may be fighting a losing battle on that too.
So to Chris's point, the idea there is that if we adopt our own solar ordinance, you know, we can put in steps and a process and requirements for it. And if they're palatable to the industry, we might get our way. But if they're too restrictive, then you know, ultimately the Public Service Commission weighs in and can override. And I think that's, you know, what we've seen in some other areas.
I think not visible to the pedestrian would be good.
That's fine too, really. I'm
Oh, you know,
Anyway.
carport style solar has the benefit of, you know, keeping people's cars shaded while they're parked,
Right,
you
right.
know, but, and that's gonna be visible to a pedestrian, but I would be in favor of that. And most, you know, that really is not unattractive in the way that big solar panels on a cornfield are.
I agree.
Grove homes, don't they?
Yeah. Well, McCormick, if you go down in Cockeysville at the corner at Beaver Dam and where they just built the new highs, but there's that whole corner is a big industrial building there, and all of their parking lots are covered with carport style solar, and it's apparently quite effective, and it's not unattractive. And if you know, if you're walking out to your car in the rain, I'm sure you appreciate it.
How long is it gonna take to charge your car? I guess you do it during the day, right?
Well, but I mean, you know, and there are charging stations there, but they're fed
Yeah.
from the solar panels.
All right. Page 36.
Actually, this is where I had my comment about the solar, because here it says that we would, and again, it doesn't say we will, but it just says should explore, and it specifically states solar wind, which solar and wind, I don't think either one of them is efficient. I don't think it's very efficient. But anyway.
Did you want to change the wording on it, or are you okay with the way it is?
Well, it says explore opportunities, so
Yeah.
I think I'm okay with that.
Yeah, and some of these things are actually state requirements that the plan include elements like this and talk about sustainability and the energy options, energy efficient options.
I
So-
think we don't want no damn solar in our plan, it won't get approved by the state.
Yeah.
Little difficulty in that.
So the other question I had was on the first column there, what's that, third paragraph down, they talk about permeable pavements. Is there any around here that I can go look, what's a permeable pavement?
Picture of it right there.
Yeah, so this is what's shown here on that picture on the next page is something called grassy pavers, which essentially are little concrete blocks with holes in the middle, and you fill them full of topsoil and you seed it.
Right.
And that's very effective because it's strong enough that it supports, a vehicle has got a basic crusher run underneath of it, but it has grass growing in it, so it's not just plain blacktop. And so it becomes a permeable surface. When it rains, water goes down through it instead of just running off.
You have to mow it.
They had one of those down there in Columbia when we went on that. You guys didn't go on the tour.
Oh, no, yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Oh, in
Columbia.
Ellicott City?
Ellicott City.
Yeah. My company's actually installed some of these in different varieties of these in different places.
How big's the square?
About a couple inches square. You don't want it to be too big because you don't want somebody's tire to sink down in it. But it's about 50% of the area is grass as opposed to being hard pavement.
So you still have to mow it?
Not generally, because it doesn't grow that quickly. It doesn't get that much. You might have to, maybe in the early
Depends on how much
spring.
it's parked on.
But
It depends on how much parking it gets too.
Yeah, how much use it gets, because vehicle traffic running over it will keep the grass down.
I'm sure there are
I've
some,
never seen any, I don't recall, so I'm just,
I'm sure there are
There's a
some parking
walkway.
facilities here in Carroll County. I'm drawing a blank on exactly where, but you can sometimes tell by just the different look of the asphalt that the parking spaces will be one type of asphalt and the travel lane will be another. And in those situations, sometimes the parking spots are a pervious asphalt.
They're called
I wanna say
open.
Wegmans in Frederick might be one of those.
The
but-
sheets on 140 south of Westminster, in between the gas pumps and the concrete parking pads at the building, that's a permeable pavement. You can see because it's what we call an open graded mix. There's no sand in it, so that it's just liquid asphalt and a couple of different sizes of stone. And what it does is it allows water to run through it, and then there's underneath of it is like 57s or some sort of open grade stone, not a graded aggregate. So that way water then permeates down through and then runs off and goes to the stormwater management facility or bioretention pond or whatever. So those designs are fairly common.
Yeah, and even, as space becomes more precious, right? They're looking for ways to do things on the developed areas rather than having to set aside open space areas on a lot to control stormwater. So we see a lot more of this.
so I'm going to Sheets and Wegmans, okay?
Go when it's raining. Make sure you go when it's raining.
Yeah, go when
That's
it's raining.
You really tell the difference. Because you really can see a difference with it, so.
Nope, I'm good.
Okay. Any other comments?
That's all we have for tonight.
Anyone from the floor have any comments? Right, so I guess our next meeting will be May the 20th. And a motion for adjournment.
To adjourn.
Second.
Dan, any further discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Carried. Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
See you next month.
Good night, guys.
next month.
Thank you.
See ya.
Good night.